Okay, so I hope everybody can see my screen and that the audio is okay. If there are any problems, please just pop a quick note into the questions or the chat window. If you are having any issues with either seeing my monitor or with the audio, do let me know. So, welcome to this month's webinar. We'll be focusing in the month of May on Mozy and its application for servers, and how that is different to backing up a desktop, and what are the kind of features that you maybe would focus on more so on the server side of things than you would normally on your regular desktop for users. So for those who haven't joined before, a quick introduction. My own name is Niall. I do all the technical training, delivery, creation and scheduling for Mozy within the company and externally for any partner trainings that need to be carried out. So I'm with Mozy about 6 years now, and started in the tech support field before I moved into this role of training people. And today's session, like for anybody who hasn't attended previously, again, we have the usual structure. We will go through a small, short PowerPoint presentation, usually takes about 10 minutes. I'll then do a walkthrough, explanation of what we've seen in the slide deck for about another 15 minutes. Depending how quickly we get that done, I generally leave the last 30 minutes open to any questions that you may have on today's topic specifically. So ideally, any questions that we have will be related to today's topic. If there is something that I cover and it piques an interest for you, or it brings about a question that maybe not directly related to today's topic, do ask it. I may highlight it and ask you to take it offline. But we will try and answer any questions today specifically about today's topic. So what we're going to look at specifically in this session today is backup sets, how you use them, what benefit they are. Then we're going to look at VSS Backup Sets specifically. So what do they do, where do they come from, and who creates them, and what benefit they can be for backing up a server operating system. And then we're also going to look at network shares. So to get started, some quick definitions. So server type, operating system, and our focus. These three areas I want to look at. The server type, so for those of you who may be familiar with the service, we have a desktop and server operating system type. So we're obviously, with today's focus, we're going to be looking at the server operating system specifically, but just a quick note that server type machines, when you select a user to be a server user within the admin console, that just basically means that they can only back up server operating systems and desktop operating systems. If you set somebody up as a desktop user within the admin console, it means that they can only back up desktop operating systems. Okay, so that's if you set up somebody as a server user in the admin console, they can only back up server operating systems. Sorry, they can back up server operating systems and desktop operating systems. But if you set somebody up as a desktop user within our administration console, then they can only back up desktop operating systems. Okay, so as I said, we'll obviously be focusing specifically today on the server side of things and what that can do for you, and the small changes or the small additions that you will see as a server user in the client that is installed on your machine, and try and identify the small things that can make that experience a bit better for you. So the question comes about, I suppose, when we're looking at this topic in terms of Mozy for servers, how can backup sets help me? So backup sets allow you to group your specific files and file types together. They can also be created to group files in a specific location on your hard drives or on specific locations in the servers. And maybe you want to group all those files together in a particular backup set. Maybe the files that are being saved to the server are from a specific business unit or a specific section of the organization, and you want to back them up in their own backup set. because those organization or those business units save to a certain location all the time on the server. It also you can create exclusionary and inclusionary backup sets. So exclusionary backup sets will allow us to obviously exclude particular files from backups on a permanent basis. So if, for example, we don't want to be backing up movie files or MP4s, WMVs, those type of video files, then we can create an exclusionary rule to actually block them from backup. So even if somebody tries to select them in the File System tab, they can't be selected there either. And we'll look at this in detail and in practice later on when we're going through the walkthrough. But also the advantage of the backup sets is it comes true to our core idea that the Mozy product should be set and forget, in that you should select your files once, and any files similar to that you want backed up or locations you want backed up should be picked up automatically when files are added. I'll take, for example, I have the PowerPoint backup set selected for myself. Obviously in training I deal with a lot of PowerPoint, so when I create a PowerPoint, I don't want to have to manually go in, open up the client configuration on my machine and have to select individual files to back up. Instead, I have the backup set for PowerPoint selected, and when I select, so when I create a new PowerPoint, that file will automatically get selected for the next backup. So it goes to that process of set and forget. So I'm creating a new file, I don't have to worry about it. I know it's going to be backed up already because I have the PowerPoint backup set selected. So as I say, we'll look at more details and I'll show you in the walkthrough how those work and how the backup sets work and the advantages of them, and in terms of inclusions and exclusions for backup sets. But now I'm going to look at some of the VSS backup sets. So VSS backup sets, primarily we would look at anybody who's backing up a database or server. So are you backing up Exchange, Active Directory, SQL, or some other database like SQL that may have a VSS backup set? Okay, if you are backing up Exchange or Active Directory or SQL, then we would recommend using the VSS backup sets rather than selecting the folder for Exchange from the File System tab. There's a reasoning behind that. Okay, so if we take Exchange as our example, okay, Exchange in a nutshell, so from a high level, how Exchange works is that when you create transactions in Exchange, so sending an email, receiving an email, moving an email, deleting an email, things along those lines, it creates a temporary log file, okay? And as transactions or email transactions occur, this file becomes larger and larger until it reaches its maximum size. And that's usually about 1 megabyte. It can be increased to 5 megabytes, but it's generally 1 or 5 megabytes in size that the maximum size is set for that file, for that temporary log file that Exchange creates. So once this happens, so that once the file is actually full of transactions, the file is renamed to a new value. So generally it's something like e01.log. And a new temporary log is created and the cycle starts over. So if you can imagine, when we're going to take a backup of an Exchange server, where when using the, if we were to use the File System tab to select the individual folder that Exchange resides in that scenario, we would be asking the snapshot to be taken, because remember, Exchange stays open all the time. We would be asking the snapshot to be taken by the system writer. So the system writer, it's designed only to kind of take snapshots of your 1 or 2 open files. For example, if I was to run a backup now, that it would be able to take a snapshot of my PowerPoint. It's not designed to deal with the, I suppose, level of transactions that can occur with an Exchange database. So because of this constant changing, it can be confusing to the writer. That is, so it can be confusing to the system writer because it's not designed to handle that level of information. And that's why Exchange has its own writer. So Microsoft have created its own VSS writer to take snapshots of an Exchange database. And it's this writer, when we install Mozy on our server, and Mozy does a scan of the file system, it picks up this writer and it creates a VSS backup set specifically for Exchange. Okay? And it's designed to handle all the chaos within that folder. So this constant creation of a log file, so this temporary log file that empties all of a sudden and is now empty, and all the data has gone to a new log file. So when we're trying to take a snapshot of a file, and halfway through that snapshot it's empty, you can see where the problem can occur. And this is not something that's limited. This is not something that's a Mozy limitation per se. It's more so in the design of the way Microsoft backs up open files. So it's because of this constant change that we would recommend users to use the VSS backup set that's specifically designed for Exchange or for Active Directory or for SQL. Because these backup sets are created when the scan of the system is done. Okay? When the scan of the system is done, it identifies that we have, okay, well, I can see that Exchange is installed on here or Active Directory is installed on here, and I'm going to create this VSS backup set. So what's happening then? So by using, so if we try to use the file system tab, what it attempts to do there is it attempts to copy all the files in the Exchange directory. So that's all the individual log files. So okay, I see a hand raised there. If somebody has a question, if you can just pop it into the question box, and we can address it in a moment. Or if it's an audio issue, please do let me know straight away. So basically, if you're trying to back up Exchange, back up the Exchange database, for example, and we're using the file system tab where we've just selected the folder of Exchange, it'll attempt to copy all the files in the Exchange directory. So that's all the log files that are there since the last backup occurred. And that could be in the hundreds, depending on how many people are interacting with your Exchange server. So if we're using the VSS backup set, you should see, as I say, the VSS set for Exchange listed. And by using this backup set, these log files are truncated and incorporated into the database for Exchange. Okay, and this database then is what we take the snapshot of and back up. Not only is it okay, it's, I suppose, less of a headache for yourself when you're backing up, so that you don't encounter any errors by using this VSS backup set, but also you have the additional advantage of when you go to do a restore, Exchange, Active Directory, and SQL all have inbuilt restore wizards to use VSS backups. So if you've backed up your database using VSS, then they have wizards inbuilt in them if you have to restore your Exchange or restore your Active Directory. God forbid that should ever happen. So that's just VSS backup sets. I'll show you what they look like in a moment on the walkthrough, and I'll show you how they work as well in terms of restoring. But hopefully that gives you an idea of the importance of why we would recommend you use VSS backup sets as opposed to selecting the actual, I suppose, Exchange server or Active Directory server folder from within the file system tab. So if you're using network shares, so Mozy can back them up as long as you're set up as a server user. So there are three components to adding a network share. Obviously the location or its path, the username and password. Now, in a lot of, I suppose, work environments, most people would have a username and password, but it's not something that is 100% needed. It's just that if you do have a username and password, then you need to include them. However, the location or the path is a must. Okay, so Mozy requires that the unique naming convention be precisely adhered to when defining a network share. So when you're inputting the location of the path name, we don't use a map path to read from a share. While we can, if you have the network share mapped already, then we can pick it up from the drop down, but you can't do it. You can't map a network share from within the Mozy client. Okay. If you already have, as I said, a drive mapped to a network location, you can select it from the drop down menu when you select to add a network share, and the proper path will get populated. So in terms of the location or the path, you must use the following convention. So as you see there on your screen, it's the usual. It's the kind of // whatever you've named the server or the network share /share. Or you can go along the lines of // and input the IP address of the network share, and then / and the name of the share. So as long as it follows that convention, you should be able to add the network share without any issue. Generally, in terms of the usernames, they'll normally have to follow one of the below formats. But again, the username and password are not 100% needed by Mozy unless you have them set up on your network share. If you don't have a username and password set up on your network share, then Mozy won't need them to be able to add it. It will just need the path or the location. But if you do have them, it's obviously important that you do input them into the correct box when it pops up for you. So that's the end of in terms of the PowerPoint presentation. We'll now look at going through this in the client. I'll show you. So as mentioned, some of the backup sets in terms of some of the rules that you can create in terms of exclusion rules, and also how you can add a network share. Okay, so as I mentioned a while ago, so we can see from here my backup set tab. All these backup sets here that you see before you, excluding this VSS one, are created by Mozy. So there's some common backup sets that people would use or have requested over time, and we've implemented them in the client because they group together specific files and folders that are commonly backed up by people. So all these would be created by Mozy, these backup sets and so forth. If you want to adjust them, if you want to add additional information to them, you can. If you want to delete them, you can do that too. If you want to add your own backup sets, that can be done. The only ones that Mozy doesn't create is the VSS backup sets, like this one here and this one here. These are populated when I have a server when I have a server user, and I'm allowed backup server operating system. When I install, when the file system is being scanned to populate these backup sets and so forth, then if we see that one of these systems is installed, like Exchange or SQL, then we'll populate the relevant backup set there. And this backup set then just pulls in, as if we click in here, you'll see it pulls in database files, okay, rather than text files per se that you may see from the logs within Exchange or the logs within SQL. So as I said, these are created by the system, but we just pull them in and show them to the user so that they can select them. And again, if you are backing up Exchange or SQL Server or Active Directory, I would recommend using them for the two reasons around, the first being that it prevents additional errors happening, that if you were selecting the individual folder within the file system, say the Exchange folder, it reduces the risk of errors there because the system writer is not able to keep up with it. And also, from if you ever have to go to the scenario where you need to restore your Exchange or you need to restore your Active Directory, those systems and SQL as well have, as I mentioned, inbuilt restore wizards that allow you to restore quite quickly using the database files that are backed up from here. Okay. To add, so to actually, I suppose, to edit or to remove a backup set, just right-click on the backup set, okay, and you can edit. And from there, you can see search locations here, and you can also see the files or what's being actually included in the backup set. So all the different file types. And if, for example, you were using, in this scenario, it's presentations, but if you were using a different type of software for your presentations and the file ending wasn't listed in there, you can very easily just add it. Just pop in there anywhere, put in a space, and put in the you know, new PowerPoint ending like that. And if a file has that ending in the search location, it will be dragged into this backup set and backed up. Okay. There's additional rules there. You can do it by size of the file. You can do it by the last modified date. You can do it by created date. If we just add an additional rule here, I can include, let's say, file size. It's less than or greater than particular size. When was it last modified? Before, after, or between. If I wanted to only pick up PowerPoints that were created last year because I want to create an archived PowerPoint presentation backup set, I could do that here, selecting from the calendar, you know, the 1st of January 2014 to the 31st of December 2014. I can do it by created, so when was the file actually created? Again, I can do it before, after, or between. And in file name, as you can see from there, I can there's a lot of options: is not, doesn't contain, and so forth. And also the folder name. You know, I can include, again, I have the same options as I do with the file. You know, but I can include files within the folder, within these specific folder names. Okay, so there's plenty of options there in terms of if you want to edit a backup set or create a new one, as you can see there. You also have this option here to exclude. Commonly, this gets misinterpreted as the ability to actually block files from being backed up. When in actual fact, if you think of a backup set as a container or a box, let's say, and what you're doing with this box is that you're, with the rules and with the search location, you're deciding what goes into that box. Okay? So if I go under the rules side of things here and hit exclude, okay, and exclude these file types, but I'm still searching this entire location, what it's going to do is it's going to create a box for me, and everything that's in that search location, it's going to put into that box. And it's going to exclude outside of that box these file types here. Now, that's okay if I wanted to back up absolutely everything in my search location. But in reality, what most people want to do to create an exclusion rule is to actually block specific files from getting backed up. To do that, I need to go into my options window, go to advanced, and tick this option here, show advanced backup set features. If I select that, we come back to backup sets, okay? And I right click and add backup set, okay? I now have this rule here. Files matching this set will be excluded from the final backup set, okay? So I can use that if I want, okay? So what I would do then, so let's take the example that I want to exclude .mp3 from my backups. So I don't want any music files that end in an MP3 to be backed up. What I would do is I would select my search location. Okay, I would give my backup set a name. So I'm going to say exclude MP3. And then I'm going to add a rule. That rule is going to include file type MP3. And then I'm going to select the option up here to exclude it. So what's actually happening is I'm creating a box or container. I'm putting MP3 files into it. And by selecting this option up here, I'm now saying, well, anything that's within this box, I do not want backed up. Okay? Whereas if I come down here and hit exclude, let's see what happens. If I hit that OK, notice how my scanning is ongoing here. My backup set is yet to appear. Still scanning, still scanning, still scanning. Now it's checking for my entire C drive for files. And what it's going to populate now for me, as you can see here, is it's going to populate a backup set with absolutely every file in my C drive. And what it's going to do is it's going to put everything into that backup set, and it's going to exclude from that backup set my MP3 files. Now that's fine. If I want absolutely everything in my C drive backed up, I could select that and back up, and away I go. But if I come up to my music folder here, okay. If I come up to my music folder here, I can still select music files for backup. So it's not a true exclusionary rule. It's only excluding the files from this particular backup set. Whereas if we go back in here, I select include here. So I'm going to put those MP3 files back into that container. And I'm going to select this exclusionary option and hit OK. It scans and updates my file selection. And now, notice the backup set name has gone red. The files in there are no longer selectable. And if I come down to my music backup set, and I scroll down, the files are in here as well. They show in here, but I can't select them in here either. So that's a true exclusionary rule. When the folder goes red up here, and the files are not selectable anywhere else from within the configuration window, then that's a true exclusionary rule. And I can be confident then that those files or folders that I do not want, that they will not be backed up. So as I say, to add a backup set, you right-click down here. To edit one, you right-click on the backup set and you can hit edit. And we've seen the potential rules and options that are there with that. So if there are any specific questions, I'll take them in a moment. Just quickly to move on to the File System tab. This is where we will go to add a network share. And to do so, as I said, you input the network share name here. If it's already been mapped on your machine, then you can add it, you can select it from here. Okay, and if you do select it from there, most often than not, those will come with a username and password, and you may need to input those. Just a quick note on anything that is on a network share. If a file is opened on a network share when a backup goes to run and the file is selected for backup, then it will be skipped because Microsoft's volume shadow copy service cannot back up open files on a network share. Okay, so once you're happy, you hit OK, and the network share will just get added up here, and it will show as an additional option underneath your operating system disk there. In terms of, just quickly, just to show you, VSS restores from the client are available here. You hit VSS restores, it'll ask you, do you want to download files from your last backup? If you want to select a VSS backup from a specific date, do search by date, search the date you want, and then go to VSS restore. Okay. Hit next. It'll download the VSS metadata, and then it will show you the available VSS backup sets. Okay. You select the one you want. You hit next. It'll go to download the files. And at this point here, in this particular scenario, it's going to give me the option of actually, if I hit next, it's going to actually replace these files for me using the the wizard inbuilt there. And this will be the same for Exchange or Active Directory. But if it is your first time using VSS restores for Exchange or Active Directory or SQL, there are knowledge base articles available at support.mozy.com. And I would recommend that you go look at those first. So I'm not going to take up any more time in terms of presentation. We'll switch over to questions now. So if you do have any questions, just pop them in. I know we had one that popped up during the session, and I'll start with that. Okay, Eric, you asked the question, okay, so in terms of SQL databases, what's better, backing up through the VSS Backup Sets or backing up the .back files created by the SQL Server maintenance agent for restoring purposes in case of a server crash? So I can't confidently 100% say which would be the best. So what I'll do is that I will take that offline, Eric, and I will give you an answer on that. I will get one of our senior tech agents to give a response on that, just to make sure. I would imagine that it would be the VSS Backup Sets, but I don't want to say that with 100% conviction. You know, I want to get the right answer for you. So I will take that question to one of our senior techs for you and get back to you. If you can just pop your email address into me, you should have mine from the invitation you got for the webinar. If you can just email me your, just that you have a question, just so that I can get your email address, and I'll respond back. So are there any other questions that you may have? Just for anybody who may not have any questions and they need to drop off the call, just to let you know that from next month forward, we're going to be sending out the webinar invitation within our Mozy Pro newsletter, so do watch out for that. So it will be going out with the Mozy Pro newsletter that goes out on a regular monthly basis, and we're going to put our webinar invitation into that. And thanks very much for joining today. For those who have joined, I appreciate you giving up your time to spend with us here, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you again next month.